Dawn came slow over the high desert, pale light spreading across the land like a held breath. The road east of Red Hollow was quiet at that hour. Too quiet for a trading route. No birds. No wagon creaks. No cattle bells drifting on the wind. Just dust, scrub grass, and the long, patient line of earth that had learned how to keep secrets. The wagon stood where the trail bent toward the cottonwoods. It should not have been there. One wheel had sunk into the dirt at an angle that spoke of a hurried stop. The canvas cover hung loose on one side, its ties cut clean, not torn. There were no horses hitched, no tracks leading away that showed panic. Whoever had left had done so carefully. Beside the wagon sat a child. She was no more than 6 or 7. Her dress was plain, travel-worn, the hem darkened by dust. She sat with her back straight, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the empty road ahead. Not searching. Waiting. She did not cry. That was the first wrong thing. The second was how long she had clearly been there. Callahan reined in 50 yards out. He had learned, long ago, that the land spoke if a man gave it time. The stillness here was not natural. It was the kind left behind when something had already happened and did not wish to be disturbed. He stayed in the saddle, studying the ground. No blood. No scattered belongings. No drag marks. Only order. That unsettled him more than violence ever had. He was a broad man, worn down by years of weather and choices. His coat was sun-faded, his hat shaped by habit more than care. The rifle across his saddle was old but clean, carried the way men carried tools, not trophies. Callahan did not involve himself in other people's roads. That rule had kept him alive. He could turn now. Ride on. Let the town handle what the town always claimed to handle. He already knew what that would mean. The child looked up. Not startled. Not afraid. She met his eyes as if she had been expecting him in particular. That was the third wrong thing. Callahan dismounted. His boots pressed into the dust, the sound loud in the quiet. Still, she did not move. He stopped a few steps away, careful not to loom. "Where's your folks?" he asked. His voice was calm. Flat. A voice that had learned not to promise things it could not keep. The child looked past him, down the road, toward the bend where the trail disappeared into heat and light. "They said they'd be back," she replied. "Not Mama. Not Papa. They." Callahan followed her gaze. There was nothing there. The land had already swallowed whatever tracks once existed. "How long you been waiting?" he asked. She thought about it. That, too, felt wrong. "Since the sun was low," she said. That meant overnight. Alone. Callahan glanced at the wagon again. Inside, the crates had been opened and repacked. Tools missing. Cloth gone. What remained had been stacked neatly to one side. This was not robbery. This was selection. He crouched slowly, bringing himself to her level. The child watched him with a steadiness that did not belong to someone her age. "What's your name?" he asked. "Eliza." It took effort for her to say it, as if names were precious things now. Callahan nodded once. He did not offer his own. He stood, scanned the trees, the rocks, the ridge line beyond. If someone was watching, they were good at it. Or gone already. The road had a reputation. Wagons vanished here. Families too small to cause trouble. Travelers whose absence would not be noticed until weeks later, when it no longer mattered. People said it was bad ground. Callahan knew better. Bad ground did not sort supplies. Bad ground did not leave witnesses. He took off his coat and draped it around Eliza's shoulders. She flinched at the touch, just barely, then held still. "I'm not who you're waiting for," he said. "But I can't leave you here." She did not argue. He lifted her onto his horse, settling her carefully in front of the saddle. She smelled of dust and cold night air. As he mounted behind her, Callahan felt something shift. Not fear. Not anger. Responsibility. He turned the horse away from the wagon, away from the road, away from the direction things were supposed to go. Behind them, the abandoned wagon stood silent, already beginning to look like it had always been alone. And far away, in places where men traded in whispers and routes and flesh, someone would soon notice that one piece of their careful order had not gone as planned. They rode north until the land rose and the air thinned, until the trail narrowed into something only locals used and strangers avoided. Eliza did not look back. That, more than anything, told Callahan what the road behind them truly was. She sat straight in the saddle, small hands resting against the horn, absorbing the rhythm of the horse as if she had done it all her life. When the wind cut sharp across the flats, she leaned slightly into him without asking permission, the way someone leans into a wall they trust will not move. Callahan adjusted his pace, careful not to jostle her. He had not carried a child like this before. Not living. Not breathing. The land opened as they climbed. Rocks gave way to scrub, scrub to pine. By late afternoon, they reached the shallow creek that marked the edge of his range. That was where he stopped. Not because he was tired. Because stopping meant something now. He watered the horse, then set about building a small fire. Eliza watched, silent, eyes following his hands. When he passed her a piece of dried meat, she hesitated only a moment before taking it. "You hungry?" he asked. She nodded. He waited until she had eaten half before speaking again. "Tell me about your people." Her jaw tightened. Not refusal. Preparation. "They traded," she said. "Tools. Cloth. Pots sometimes. They didn't stay long in towns." "Why not?" She shrugged. "Mama said towns remember faces." Callahan looked into the fire. "Smart woman." "They stopped here?" he asked. "No. By the bend. Near the trees." Callahan nodded. He could see it clearly now. A planned place. Shade. Water. A stretch of road that made men careless. "Who came?" he asked. Eliza swallowed. "3 at first. Then more." "Did they say names?" She shook her head. "They smiled." That told him enough. People who smiled when they didn't need to were never acting alone. Night settled in slow and heavy. The kind of night that pressed down, making small sounds carry far. Callahan set the rifle where he could reach it without moving. Old habits, sharpened by long memory. Eliza curled near the fire, wrapped in his coat. She slept quickly. Deeply. That worried him too. He stayed awake. Just before dawn, hooves sounded on the lower trail. Callahan stood before the fire died. 3 riders appeared between the trees, their silhouettes careful, unhurried. They rode like men who expected no resistance. The lead man lifted a hand in greeting. "Morning," he called. "We're looking for a wagon." Might have seen it. Callahan stepped into view, keeping the fire behind him. Didn't, he said. The men dismounted anyway. That told Callahan exactly how this would end. The lead rider's eyes shifted to the bedroll by the fire. To the small shape beneath the coat. That your girl? He asked. No. The man smiled. Sheriff wants her brought in. For her own safety. Callahan did not move. There's no sheriff north of Red Hollow, he said. The smile thinned. You don't want trouble, the man replied. Callahan finally looked at him then. Really looked. I never do, he said. The shot came fast. Not loud. Just final. When it was over, the creek flowed on, indifferent. The birds returned slowly. Eliza did not wake. Callahan buried the men where the soil was thin and the markers would not last. When the sun rose fully, he knew one thing with certainty. He had crossed a line. And lines, once crossed, had a way of pulling men farther than they ever meant to go. Red Hollow learned things before it admitted them. By the time Callahan rode within sight of its low buildings and wind-worn signs, the town already knew a child had been taken north. It knew 3 men had not come back. It knew whose trail led away from the creek. No one said it out loud. Men on porches watched him pass with the careful stillness of people measuring distance. A woman pulled her son closer without realizing she had done it. The blacksmith paused mid-strike, hammer hanging in the air a moment longer than necessary. Callahan did not slow. He had not planned to come here. Not with Eliza. But there were things she needed that only a town could provide. Shoes that fit. Food that was not hard and dry. And answers, whether the town wished to give them or not. He left Eliza with Mrs. Kincaid at the boarding house. The old woman's eyes flicked to Callahan's rifle, then back to the child. I'll watch her, she said. It was not kindness that made her agree. It was memory. Callahan nodded once and stepped back into the street. Sheriff Hale's office stood at the far end, its windows open despite the chill. A man inside laughed. It sounded practiced. Callahan entered without knocking. Hale looked up slowly, as if he had all the time in the world. Didn't expect to see you again, Hale said. Heard you taken to living quiet. I have, Callahan replied. Hale leaned back in his chair. Then why bring trouble to my door? Callahan set his hat on the desk. You lost some men. Hale's eyes flicked toward the window, then back. Men lose themselves all the time. Not these. Silence stretched. Hale's smile faded. You found something that isn't yours, Hale said. Things like that cause confusion. Callahan leaned forward just enough for Hale to notice. She's a child. Hale sighed. So were others. The words landed heavy. That was when Callahan understood. Not suspicion. Not rumor. Certainty. This town did not just tolerate the road. It fed it. You take wagons, Callahan said. Families. You sell what you can and move the rest through. Hale's face hardened. Careful. Callahan straightened. Careful ran out when you sent men north. For the first time, Hale looked afraid. You don't know how big this is, he said. You don't know who's tied to it. Callahan picked up his hat. Then it's time someone did. Outside, Red Hollow held its breath. Callahan returned to the boarding house. Eliza stood when she saw him. We're leaving, he said. She nodded, already understanding. As they rode out, no one tried to stop them. But in the shadows of Red Hollow, messages were already moving. Routes shifting. Names being spoken in rooms that did not welcome light. The system had noticed. And systems, when threatened, did not forgive. They did not follow right away. That was how Callahan knew this was no longer about the child alone. He took the high trail west, where the land folded into itself and sightlines stretched long. Eliza rode quiet, her small hands steady now, her eyes learning the shape of the world ahead instead of the road behind. By the second night, the air had changed. Not weather. Intent. Callahan felt it the way a man feels pressure before a storm. The land had gone watchful. Sounds carried too cleanly. The horse lifted its head more often than it needed to. Just before dusk, they found the marker. A wagon wheel, half buried upright beside the trail. Not abandoned. Placed. Carved into its rim was a symbol Callahan recognized. A simple notch pattern used by freight men to mark loads that were already claimed. This was not a threat meant to frighten. It was a warning meant to instruct. Eliza touched his sleeve. That means they're close. He looked at her then. Really looked. Who told you that? My father, she said. He said if you see that mark, you leave. Or you hide. Callahan rested his hand on the rifle. We're not leaving. They camped anyway, but not where the trail suggested. Callahan chose higher ground, fire hidden, horse tied far enough to muffle movement. He showed Eliza where to lie if shooting started. She listened without crying. Near midnight, the warning became a message. 3 riders approached from the south. Another 2 from the east. They did not rush. They did not shout. Professionals. The first shot dropped a man before he dismounted. The second broke the formation. The rest ended quickly. Swift. Purposeful. Finished. Callahan did not pursue the ones who fled. They were meant to carry something back. By morning, smoke rose from the low trail. Red Hollow had sent its answer. Callahan packed their things with care. Eliza helped, her movements precise. They won't stop, she said. No, he agreed. They won't. He mounted the horse and looked south. Where the road bent back toward town, toward the network that had grown fat on silence. This was no longer about sheltering a child. This was about ending something that believed itself untouchable. Callahan turned the horse around. They rode toward Red Hollow. They did not leave Red Hollow that night. Callahan knew better. When a system is wounded, it does not die quickly. It lashes. It calls in what it owes and what owes it. The men who ran the road would not come as riders now. They would come as records, routes, names carried in saddlebags and memory. So Callahan stayed. He moved Eliza to the back room beneath the boarding house, where stone kept sound from carrying. Mrs. Kincaid brought blankets without being asked. Other townsfolk helped in small, careful ways, food left where it might be found, lamps left burning longer than usual. Not courage. Recognition. By morning, Callahan had Hale's books laid out across the sheriff's desk. Ledgers disguised as tax rolls. Freight schedules written in shorthand. Names repeated across years, always moving, never staying long enough to rot in one place. This was not a gang. It was a river. Red Hollow was only one bend. Eliza stood beside him, pointing when memory stirred. That one, she said. They came from there. And that mark, she added quietly. Papa said it meant children, not goods. Callahan felt something cold settle behind his ribs. The scale of it spread outward, other towns, other sheriffs, other hollow places that smiled and took what passed through. If he left now, someone else would step into Hale's chair. The road would bend again. The wagon tracks would return. You can't fight all of it, Mrs. Kincaid said softly from the doorway. Callahan closed the ledger. No, he agreed. But I can break this peace. By afternoon, riders arrived. Not 3. Not 5. A dozen men, well armed, wearing coats that marked them as belonging nowhere and everywhere. They did not enter town all at once. They surrounded it. Controlled exits. Cut options. This was not retrieval. This was correction. Callahan walked into the street alone. A man stepped forward, older than the rest, eyes sharp with practice. You interfered with commerce, he said. That was a mistake. You trafficked children, Callahan replied. The man did not deny it. The world runs on unpleasant necessities. Callahan raised his rifle. No, he said. It runs on men deciding when enough is enough. The shooting was brief. Decisive. When it ended, the men who remained alive were already turning away. They had learned what this place now cost. By dusk, the road was quiet again. But it was a different quiet than before. The kind that follows a storm, when the land has been scoured clean. Callahan stood at the edge of town, watching the sun sink. Eliza joined him. Is it over? She asked. For here, he said. She nodded, accepting the weight of that answer. Behind them, Red Hollow breathed for the first time in years. Ahead of them, the road waited. Not hungry. Changed. They left Red Hollow at first light. No one tried to stop them. No one followed. The road, for once, did not test them. It lay open and quiet, as if something old and patient had been satisfied. They rode north, back toward the higher ground where Callahan's land waited, no fence line worth naming, no house fit for company. Just a cabin, a corral, and a stretch of country that asked little and gave only what it must. Eliza watched the land change as they climbed. The dust thinned. Pine replaced scrub. The air cooled enough to breathe without effort. This is where you live, she said. Yes. It's quiet. It stays that way if you listen to it. The cabin appeared near dusk, set against a line of trees that broke the wind. It was plain. Sturdy. Built to last, not to impress. Callahan dismounted and lifted Eliza down. She stood there a long moment, studying the place. It's good, she said finally. Callahan nodded. He did not trust his voice just then. Life settled into something resembling order. Not peace, peace was too fragile a word, but steadiness. Eliza learned the work of the land. Callahan learned how much a child noticed, how quickly she learned the shape of a man by his silences as much as his words. At night, the wind moved through the trees and carried stories with it. Down south, the road changed. Wagons passed through Red Hollow without stopping. Other towns felt the absence where the river of men had once flowed. Routes dried up. Names disappeared from ledgers and memory alike. People spoke of Callahan in new ways now. Not as a man to avoid, but as a line not to cross. He never corrected them. One evening, As the sun slipped low and painted the land in copper and shadow, Eliza sat beside him on the porch. "Were you ever a father before?" she asked. Callahan thought of the past. Of things buried without markers. "No," he said. She nodded. "You're good at it." He let the silence hold that. Years later, travelers would still talk about the road east of Red Hollow. How it felt different. How children passed through it now without vanishing. How some places carried memory the way scars did, not to hurt, but to warn. They said a man once found a child waiting beside a wagon and chose not to ride on. They said the land noticed. And once the land notices a thing like that, it does not forget.